welcome everyone to our August uh, webinar. As you can tell, I am not Pete Newbig, so unfortunately, Pete could not join us today. My name is Derek Dawn. I'm the marketing strategist with VPM Solutions, but we have a very special guest with us today. We are really excited for Ray Hespin, the CEO at Property Meld, to be joining us, and we're going to have a deep dive discussion into a topic that is becoming even more, increasingly critical in property management: how data-backed decisions drive resident retention. So, Ray, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Derek, super pumped to be here, man. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. Just one quick housekeeping note. If you do have any questions for Ray as we go through the webinar, please feel free to put it in the Q&A chat, and we will get to them as many as we can during our time here. So,
And Derek, if I could, I just am even going to say I love questions. So if people even have something that is a half, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this webinar, but the half a question, I love it. That's how great conversations are. So please chime in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Please do. So Ray, I'm sure most, if not everyone, is familiar with yourself and Property Meld. But to start things, why don't you give us a little bit more about your background, experience, in the industry, as well as the story of Property Meld.
I won't bore too many people with the story of Property Meld. I'll make it short. But my background, I'm a mining engineer by trade. So graduated when it was the last housing downturn, 08, 09 area. And so the blessing that was is like I traveled all across the country trying to help construction materials, get super lean, because that's what they had to do. And so fortunately, my co-founder I've known since high school, and he ended up calling me one day while I was doing this. I think I was in Baltimore at the time, and he's like, "Hey, man, has renting ever been easy, or like maintenance ever been easy in renting?" And I was like, I usually just fix things myself. Like it's just not worth the headache and the hassle. And so he was giving kind of me his little exposure to maintenance, and we started with the idea is let's just make maintenance a better experience. But I think I'm now 10 years into this, getting to see some of the data and what is capable and possible, and we've kind of continued to re-understand the impact and where maintenance can go, from just being a to-do to being something that you optimize for the returns. And so that's the short.
Perfect. Yeah. And that's great. I did have I just another clarification. If you do have a question, again, please put it in the Q&A chat. The actual chat bot or box is it is disabled, so we wanted to make sure that the Q&A, if you have anything, please put it in the Q&A section. So yeah, so you mentioned data backed, and how can we optimize maintenance for it. What are some things that you and your team at Property Meld have seen recently, some trends, things of that you would like to share with our attendees?
Well, I'll just even kind of start. I'll start with it's kind of weird, but I think you can actually draw some of the interesting conclusions about where we're going based on where some of the other industries have been going. And so if anybody remembers, like there's multiple examples, but like learning how to change a tire was like everybody needs to learn how to do that. And it's like I haven't had a tire blow on me, and like I couldn't tell you. Knock knock. But it just doesn't. And they've got technology now that you can have run flats and all this sort of stuff. And so that's great. But if you were able to look a little bit further back and like, honey, you need to marry a man who knows how to work on a car. Like there used to be Chevy actually used to car being an auto mechanic was so common that they would actually install lights inside when you opened up the hood of the truck that you could use and was connected to the battery. That's how prolific it was. Now, if we were to ask those people and say, hey, let's talk about the future of maintaining vehicles, we'd
Mhm.
probably have heard, man, the oil filter is a little easier to get to. That particular sensor, thing is a little bit, it's easier to pull off the serpentine belt. Nobody would have thought cars actually just don't break like they used to. And if you think about the progression that we've had, like all the check engine lights, all this, and all the data that basically keeps coming back to these manufacturers, they basically keep remaking these things and optimizing it. Like we don't have to do things the same way. And so we're kind of learning we're at a similar stage on maintenance where if you think about maintenance, it's really about doing two things. It's about keeping a renter happy so they renew their lease and keeping the cost down as low as possible. That's the end game. If you do that well, you can't. Now, the thing that's kind of been very weird is like everybody's like, I know it's important, but I don't know how to change the levers in this. And so we're even releasing and correlating. So we've been coming back and correlating, wow, speed of repair to resident sat in certain key areas. Like some repairs matter more in speed than others. That's interesting. Then we're released a study where, basically your maintenance spend as an annual spend to rent roll matters to investor retention. It actually is predictable. And so is resident sat. So we end up drawing all these conclusions. And even recently, we've started to launch some data into the market around, do you know that the likelihood of a resident churning their lease after the first year goes up by 95% if you have an HVAC issue in the first 90 days? And it's like, now we're starting to go, all right, like I know what my end goal is. I'm targeting a certain renewal rate and I'm targeting a cost. And now we can almost just keep reverse engineering back and be like, this is how we need to do a turn.
Mhm.
I have a resident that's being exposed to resident lease churn risk. How are we going to act differently? And it really is changing the game from just job to be done to really optimizing maintenance operations for the outcome of the investor. And that's kind of the weird shift that we're in right now. A lot of other data I could obviously poke on and pull on, but you let me know when to shut up.
No, that this is all great stuff, and that said about 95%, within the first, 90 days, have being, as you said, being more proactive, and that's very important. So how can property managers dig deeper into this data, and what tools or what can they do with that?
Well, the first thing is to understand that it is real. These correlations exist. This is a statistics game. So if anybody knows sports became really boring, if everyone saw Moneyball,
Hmm.
it's basically like we're gonna make sports like more mathematical. And now every sports team has like data scientists rolling with it. And another example, like NBA is the same way. People don't take shots from the same place Karl Malone did back in the day. That's either the paint or the three-point line. And it's all math. And so maintenance is starting to become math with humans, which is sometimes hard to conflate, but it's true.
Sure, exactly.
And
Yeah.
and so it's really about continuing to understand what metrics and targets and KPIs your maintenance operations needs to has, and like how can your team align on being able to achieve those? Because I'm going to draw one more thing. If you have right now a renewal that's coming up, if you renew that lease, you can still get 2 to 5% rent increase. If you're losing that unit, like we're seeing people 5 to 7% rent compression. And then on top of that, your turnover and everything is going to cost around $2,500. And then your cash to cash time is going to be 45 days. It costs over 5 grand immediately to an investor, and not to mention the subsequent of revenue. And so, with the giant focus of keeping investors retained, we have to understand what our maintenance model needs to look like and work backwards and be like, how can we deliver a service that meets those things? Certain SLAs on speed, certain SLAs on turn quality, certain SLAs on responsiveness to high risk residents. And so these are all, it sounds complicated, but we're actually seeing that and we're trying to do in our product, really commoditizing that to make it easier for operators to do that.
Absolutely. And a lot of data is out there. A lot of information can be gathered and tracked. You mentioned quite a few. If someone were new to trying to track these metrics, these KPIs, where would be a great first place or a great couple of metrics that they should start with to get comfortable with it and then build upon that?
Yeah, so there's I wish I knew where this was. I cannot, there's one of these things I can't find, but I'll tell you, if you go to club-meld, and I know I can't drop in the chat, please put the hyphen. Apparently it's a porn site. I haven't seen it, but that's what they tell me. Club-meld.com. And you go up to resources, there's what's called a KPI cheat sheet. Now, that tells you the metrics to be able to run on. There's another document we call the Ladder of Maintenance Excellence, and admittedly, I'm having a hard time finding that, or I would. It would actually lead back to how all these matrix or these metrics actually tie back to the investor.
Absolutely. And another thing too that Property Meld does a great job of is providing these benchmarking reports. And the most recent one in July, uh, there's a lot of really good information in that. I highly recommend people going to the Property Meld website, and you can easily download that, and it brings a lot of information up there. Um, can you kind of break down how a lot of these metrics do connect to one another, both from a proactive decision making, as well as when you start seeing these numbers, what they can do to better improve their performance and optimize, as you said.
Yeah, so there's this concept, if everybody's heard of like Maslow's ladder of hierarchical needs. It's like basically this kind of framework to think about like we as human beings, like what we need to get better and better. And so what ends up happening with this is like you need food, water, and shelter to start. Once you have food, water, shelter, then you can move on to safety and security. Then once you move on to safety and security, then you can start doing your ambition. Um, and then and then there's a maintenance version there's a maintenance version of that. So we call it the ladder of maintenance excellence. So at the foundation level, we call it engagement. It basically means communication. You got to have communication operationally within order to do anything. If you can't communicate, then you're not going to be able to do anything. Once you get that, the engagement, then you can do scheduling efficiency, which is basically your how fast can you get repairs done. Once you do that, you can get to staffing efficiencies, which is how many people do I need to deliver that service. At that point, you're running a perfect one maintenance thing. And now it's to preventative, to forecasting, to optimization. But like the whole thing is if you actually look at and I apologize, it is on the uh, Club Meld thing. It's on the maintenance KPI section. It actually shows you, and we've used data to learn all these things around like why does an investor leave? They leave because of two things, resident sat and cost to maintain, which is basically resident retention and the cost that's coming out of their pocket, everything. And so it breaks down into all those what things should be focusing on in what order. And so I will say, by the way, Derek, the maintenance minute is one of the ways that we kind of like surface those metrics and why. We'll give some context to some interesting things we're doing, but we're trying to like bring more of this data that our platform is capturing and
Yep,
really help people kind of like see what those are on the daily. And obviously our platform's built really well to like help you kind of measure up against that and see kind of where you're at. But that's the idea. We want to keep getting that information out so people understand how to run really well property maintenance operations.
absolutely. We did have a question come in, and I feel like you touched on this quite a bit, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, please feel free. Um, Question is there somewhere that someone new to the property management space track their maintenance KPIs? Does Property Meld do this?
It's a great question. So Property Meld is a maintenance platform. It'll automate all your intake, triage, scheduling, logistics, follow-up, completion, all that stuff. And that's good. But the thing that I think this individual is asking is like, well, then what's good? So one of the things that we do is we provide you an overview. We'll tell you your vendor efficiency, your technician efficiency, coordinator efficiency, and even benchmarking to how you're doing in your metrics against your market. And so that way you can actually see, and then obviously our CSM's job is to help you figure out what you're trying to accomplish here and like, what do we need to do operationalize in the business that's going to start delivering some of those results. So yeah, we're very, very, very data-driven technology partner.
Absolutely.
Great
Another
question.
question. Yeah, great question. Another one. Again, I know we touched on this a little bit, but Um, from Property Meld's data, how big of a role does the maintenance experience, play in whether a resident decides to renew or leave?
There's some big ones. I'll give you kind of some heavy hitters just so people can understand. The experience that a renter will experience in their first year of lease, their maintenance experience will alter the lease churn from anywhere from 35% down to about 26%. So you get a 7-point spread on just their experience. The amount of service issues that they have in the first year can change renewal rates anywhere from 24% up to almost 38%. Which types of repairs, depending, and I'm giving some super high level ones, but basically like what we found doing some of these studies is like, if you have a lot of like more urgent repairs or higher priority repairs in the first year, it can alter it anywhere from 18% to over 42% of lease churn. And so again, if you think about being able to alter it just 4 points mathematically for an $1,800 a month rental, what you are going to do with 4 points statistically is put $1,000 a year back into the pocket of that investor, which is significant when you think about how tight those margins are. It's going to be the difference between really where I think our next wave of like how we're perceived as property management professionals is going to create real and meaningful leverage versus just be a services business.
Absolutely. And with a lot more teams too, and property managers and property management companies, leveraging the remote staff, remote team, how can they help incorporate those virtual maintenance coordinators, onto their tracking and make sure that they understand the relevance and the importance of using this data?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we hear from people all the time is they're incredibly sharp people we hire remotely, to be able to run some of this. And the big thing is always the challenge is like ramp up. How do I get somebody who's maybe never been in property management? Maybe like even culturally, I'm not super familiar with that space. What Property Meld does is helps those operators, what we call like make more perfect decisions. And so even like one of the tactical things that we do is right there at the coordinator level, we'll tell that coordinator when they're assigning work out if that resident is the least churn risk based on the data that we've learned. And then we'll even suggest which vendors or technicians in their pool based on their lead time, based on how liked they are, based on how much they've done work for the business. And so we'll actually try to help that. And so we believe that there's going to be a big movement to continue to make that, a lower cost or improve the margins for property management by doing remote team members. But in order to get those folks to compete with somebody who's been here 30 years on the ground, that runs a 200-door business, we have to like really help commoditize the decision-making process. So that's what we're doing over at Property Meld, trying to make that super easy so that way your 60-day coordinator can start acting like a 20-year coordinator.
Exactly. I think if we can make the lives of our clients, our people, everyone around us easier, that's best for everyone. So we have a few minutes left. If you have any questions, please again put them in the chat. But Ray, was there anything else that you wanted to make sure that we touched on, or any other insights that you'd like to share?
So I would say for those, there was a good question on like getting started. We do have the industry's only maintenance conference actually coming up in September. So one of the things we've learned is as the market's getting harder, the macro environment's getting tougher on rent, costs are still going up. I posted a thing about that recently on maintenance inflation. Everybody's trying to figure this one out. And so we have, what could be around 500 to 600 people attending, anywhere from directors, VPs, brokers, owners, technicians, all the way through. And basically, we've got our content curated to where, depending on what level you are, we have very tactical advice about how other operators are coming in and solving some of the biggest challenging problems. And so whether you're somebody who's larger and you're just trying to figure out how to optimize this particular thing, or even just try and predict where it's going, or you're sitting there standing up an internal maintenance team, or you're trying to get your finances on board and like how maintenance should do that, There's great speakers, great melding pots, as we're calling them, moments to come and spend time and learn. I would say we've already booked up. I think there's only one hotel that's left with the room rate and very close walking distance to this thing. I would suggest getting them sooner than later, or else you're going to be shuttling from somewhere else. Because it's been a great turnout. We're super excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone that's been to an industry event, a conference, the closest that you can be on site and to the actual event, the better. So make sure you definitely get your hotel booked, confirmed, everything. Um, I will
And
share my. Go ahead,
I
please.
was going to say, just so everybody knows, it's mxsummit.co. For people want to check out that website, suggest pulling it up, keeping it on your browser, just if you want to peel at it later that day. There's great breakouts on the topics. And the thing I always encourage people, look for the problems striking your business and maintenance right now, or that are maintenance related. And I would spend time to go look at what courses and content are there and make sure they really align with it before doing it, because it is an investment of time. And it should yield results for some people. So,
Absolutely, great tip. All right, there are no other questions in the chat. We actually had one working on find more details about the MX Summit, and Ray just mentioned that link in the site. So just some final housekeeping things. VPM, if you're interested in learning more about VPM solutions, we do have a couple of different service offerings. Our white glove service, we like to call this the do it with you service. There's a QR code. Please feel free to scan that. We also do offer a premium gold glove service where we, manage and handle everything on your behalf, and we work very closely with you. There is a QR code for that as well. And also, as Ray was talking about, the MX Maintenance Summit, September 16th through the 18th in Rapid City. If you do not have your registration yet, please do that if you're able to go. Book your hotel. If you haven't yet, scan the QR code on the screen as well, and use code VPM Solutions 25 during your registration. We are a proud sponsor of the MX Maintenance Summit this year. And then also feel free to scan the QR code for our next month's webinar with Matt Spear, talking about credibility is the new currency, how to win in the AI search era. So that is going to be another insightful webinar, especially with everything that's going around with AI. And then finally, if you do want to have more information, schedule a meeting with Pete, our CEO, or with Ray. There are QR codes on the screen here. Please feel free to
does
do
this get
so.
me? Does this get a meeting with me?
This does, yes.
That's incredible.
Yep.
By the way, Derek, shout out to you and your team, by the way. I've gotten to watch like how much you're shortcutting your team members that people are finding on there with some of the training and different things you guys are doing. Pete showed me the technology not too long ago. I was really super impressed of how much context you're giving some of these team members that are ready to join the property management workforce. And we're really excited that we got to work with you guys on some of the training material as well to help get maintenance coordinators up to snuff and really shorten up that ramping period. So good job to all you guys. And I feel like it's just important for the people on this or listening to this, knowing that that's the kind of pre-work that you guys are all doing. I think it's a super intelligent way to tackle the problem. So
Appreciate the shout out there. Yeah, great work from both of our teams working together. Yeah, our big part of our job is making sure that we provide the right remote team members to the people. And yes, there is a new Property Meld certification course on the VPM Academy. If you have not done that yet, please check it out. It is really insightful, and it's great for companies as well as having your remote team members take that course, become certified. A lot of information on the Property Meld uh, system as well. So, Ray, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. It was very good speaking with you, and we hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
all right. Thanks, Derek. Take care, man. Bye.
Thank you.